Hi there, I'm Danny Flexen. Welcome to the latest edition of SecondsOut ReFLEXions, our weekly look back at the boxing over the weekend. And a big show this weekend was Frank Warren's latest at BT Studios, headlined by WBO mandatory middleweight challenger Liam Williams, who didn't want to hang around for too long, in two senses of the word, waiting for his chance at Demetrius Andrade's world title. He decided to lead by example, if you like, and take care of his own mandatory obligations against the challenger for his British title, Andrew "The Animal" Robinson. But as it turned out, Williams didn't need that long to tame the animal in this case. And Robinson's a very tough guy. He's proved very durable in the past. Went to Poland last year and got a great win over there against an unbeaten fighter. But just, it's about levels, I guess. And it's the most overused cliche. Well, I suppose all cliches are overused, but the most overused term perhaps in boxing at the moment is levels or hashtag levels. But it really was true in this case. Robinson, decent domestic level performer, came in ready to give it his all, and Williams got rid of him in the very first round just with precision punching and, higher than domestic level, maybe even elite level power. And for someone who used to be a super welterweight for a lot of his career, that's even more startling that he's now seemingly hitting even harder against naturally bigger men on occasions. There was a head clash early on in the fight. Both men were cut, Williams on his head and Robinson around the eye. And that seemed to dissuade Robinson a little bit, but had the converse effect on Williams, who was spurred into action, added some urgency to his work early on, hit him with a big right hand, cornered him, and then landed some lethal body shots. The left following the right, and the left to the body proved pivotal, dropping Robinson, who was counted out in the act of rising by referee Marcus McDonnell. At first, I thought Robinson had got up by 9. McDonnell had a look at him, decided he wasn't ready to continue, and there was some criticism of the stoppage on social media. But having checked with the officials, he was actually counted out in the act of rising. So as he got up, he hit 10 and the fight was over. And it was only going one way at that point anyway. Williams had proved in a very abbreviated time frame that he was a level, if not more, above a brave but ultimately outgunned Andrew Robinson, who can come again. He'll be in the mix as and when Liam Williams relinquishes that British title. But for the moment, still waiting for that shot at Andrade. He needs to keep busy, to keep sharp, but also to keep the money rolling in. We've all got bills to pay. Williams is no different. And he'll need to stay active while he's waiting for Andrade, although purse bids for that should be called pretty soon. Andrade's been very quiet on the matter. He seems to be calling out a lot of other fighters, people on social media claiming that he's avoided. And that may all be true, and if you're Andrade, you're obviously going to chase people like the Charlos and Canelo because it's big money and low expectations, rather than fight Williams, where you would probably still be the favourite, be expected to win, narrow favourite probably, but be expected to win. The purse wouldn't be amazing. And it's a big risk because Williams is on incredible form since joining up with Dominic Ingle at the Ingle Gym and moving up to middleweight. So it's a very dangerous fight for Andrade for minimum reward. So you can understand why he doesn't want it, but that's why mandatory obligations are there, to force fighters into fights they don't necessarily want, but that the challenger deserves. So hopefully Williams doesn't have to wait too much longer for his chance. He's beyond impatient already if the performance against Robinson is anything to go by. Also on the show, we saw a fight that I think a lot of people would have rather they missed. And I was perhaps fortunate to miss a few of the early rounds with Nathan Gorman against Richard Lartey. It was one of those weird fights where you thought anything could happen. Both have been out the ring for around a year and a half. I think Lartey maybe not quite as long as Gorman. I'd have to double check. But they both coming back from defeats to Daniel Dubois inside the distance. Both had success briefly in those fights before succumbing to the power of the man known as Dynamite. But more was expected of Gorman, of course, still young, despite some people saying appearances to the contrary. Still a young man, came out overweight, as he admitted after the fight, not working with Ricky Hatton anymore, moved on to a new training team. But looked good in spurts. Jab was excellent, I thought. Some of the body shots were very good. His movement was good. all of the things that make him a quality operator, so the technical skills, the footwork, the movement, the combination punching, these are all things that will be aided by him dropping a bit of weight, being a bit lighter on his feet, a bit faster with his hands. You know, Gorman knows what his ideal weight is. He's performed at a very high level, at least domestically in the past, at a certain weight. And he'll know that on Saturday night, he was significantly over that. So that's something to work on. As for Larty, who won a lot of people's hearts in the build-up to the fight with some of the interviews he gave, including on our channel, which you can still see. Maybe not always been treated fairly by previous managers that he's had. Was delighted to be back here. Came out swinging, as was expected, but quickly ran out of steam, unfortunately. And there was a lot of holding, particularly by Gorman in the second half of the fight. But when he did have space to work, he generally proved to be the better man, technically, certainly. But now everyone wants to know what's going on from here. He called out Lucas Brown after the fight, which I think could be an interesting fight for him. The fight against Larty was a Commonwealth title eliminator. So should the winner of Daniel Dubois, Joe Joyce, give up the Commonwealth heavyweight title, Gorman would be expected to fight for that belt against a viable contender from the Commonwealth. Australia is, of course, in the Commonwealth. So a Lucas Brown fight. He's obviously lost here previously to Dave Allen, but is a former WBA champion. That would be an intriguing one, a winnable fight, I would say, for Gorman. So I can understand why he's chasing that. But I think Gorman against Dave Allen would be a good fight as well. I mean, Dave Allen's got a very tough one on the pay-per-view bill coming up against Christian Hammer, which I make Hammer an early favourite for. I make no bones about it. I think he's fought and won at a higher level than Allen, but we shall see. If Allen can somehow pull that one off, then he might feel he's beyond the likes of Nathan Gorman once again, but we shall see. I think Gorman against Allen would be a good fight for both men. And then Hughie Fury still in the mix, kind of top domestic level, fringe world level. And then you've got all the young up-and-coming heavyweights as well. So it's not a bad time to be a heavyweight in the UK for Nathan Gorman, and still, got more of his career left than has already been expended. So good luck to him. On the undercard, one of the more eye-catching performances came from Willie Hutchinson, who dropped down to almost super middleweight, just a pound and a half over super middleweight as he makes that journey down to 12 stone. And he looked dazzling against Jose Miguel Fandino. Not much of an opponent, but he did manage to take the comebacking Sergio Martinez, I think 7 rounds just recently. But Hutchinson was wasting no time, blasted him out. Hopefully he'll be at the championship limit and fighting for a championship in his next fight. He's long overdue a test. He's still only 22 years old, but he was youth world amateur champion for Scotland at that Ingle gym. Very impressive, very big as well for a super middleweight now, if that's the weight he chooses to stay at. And I believe that he can go very far, but he needs testing. He's not going to be learning anything at this point. Having beaten some top junior fighters as an amateur, he's not going to be learning anything fighting overmatched opponents as a pro, even in the early stages of his career. I think he's 12-0 now, so it's time to move on. He talks about he'd be happy to fight Lerone Richards, the British champion, in his next fight. Umar Sadiq, obviously there's cloud over his future at the moment, so he won't be challenging Lerone Richards anytime soon, as was previously planned. So there is an opening there. It's whether Richards wants to fight, whether the team at Frank Warren wants to make that fight now. 2 of their fighters against each other who, both go in places, both unbeaten. But it's a good fight if it can be made. If not, maybe Willie can look at Commonwealth or European titles or a fringe world belt. When I say a fringe world belt, I don't mean a world title. I mean a IBF International, WBA International, WBA European, that kind of thing. We shall see. But a very, very exciting prospect who probably doesn't get mentioned enough, but maybe that will change after Saturday night's performance. And an upset on the bill as well. I should mention Mark Chamberlain because he's the one who'll get forgotten, but he got the best win of his career on the show as well. Went to points, but dropped his man a couple of times. I think you'll see the interview with Mark Chamberlain on our channel where he says it was only an 8-rounder, but he won by 11 rounds. He means 11 points, but I know what he means. But yeah, you should watch that interview. But he got the best win of his career. But yeah, big upset on the show. Muhib Faizuldin, part of that Tunde Ajayi managerial stable, although not trained by him, came up short against Luke Jones of Staffordshire. Came in with, I think, a 6-3 record, but upset the odds and stopped Faizuldin in round 2. Well-deserved, correct stoppage, and hopefully he can push on from there and Faizuldin can come back. but that was an entertaining enough undercard fight. And it was a Frank Warren show, as many people have commented on. That finished comfortably before 11 p.m. Only 5 fights on the card, which aided that. But I think everyone was grateful. Obviously, 2 of the fights that were due to be on the card were called off. You can see this on our channel. Short notice on fight week when members of 2 different training camps tested positive for COVID-19, causing, even though the fighters themselves tested negative, causing their fights to be called off and hopefully rearranged, particularly the JJ Metcalf-Jack Flatley fight for the Commonwealth Super Welterweight title, which had all the ingredients to be a cracker. So we hope that gets put back together. And Warren has got a number of shows coming up that were announced on Saturday night. I want to know what you thought of the main event. How good was Williams' performance? And do you back him against Andrade, or do you still fancy the champion to retain? How much of a chance do you feel Williams has? And what's the ideal next move for Nathan Gorman? They're the 2 questions. Let us know who you think would be the ideal next opponent for Gorman. As always, really appreciate your time. I'll be back on Thursday at 4:30 p.m. for the next FLEXpectations. We'll be looking ahead not just to the Matchroom card with Lewis Ritson topping against Miguel Vasquez, but of course what I feel is the biggest fight of the year for 2020, Vasily Lomachenko against Teofimo Lopez. Absolutely mouth-watering clash that I can't wait for, and I've been lucky enough to speak to Teofimo a couple of times in the build-up. I'm not sitting on the fence on this. He is, for me, the most exciting contender, champion, whatever. Sorry, he is IBF champion, of course, but the most exciting young fighter in the world today. Incredibly charismatic. I think if he managed to get the job done in good style, or even give a good account of himself but come up short, I think that would be great for boxing. He's a superstar in the making. But enough about that, because I'll talk about everything I want to talk about on Thursday. I'll be back then, and the next ReFLEXions will be 4:30 p.m. next Monday. Sorry, I just had as you probably saw in the video, I just had a email notification come up which threw me temporarily, but I'm always ready to get back on the game. Just done it again. See you on Thursday, 4:30 p.m. for FLEXpectations, Monday for ReFLEXions. Thanks very much, and I'll see you all soon. Cheers.